I was always a rebel. Confidence and resilience and certain personality traits, they can be trained by um, conscious effort, but also unconsciously,
Hmm.
they are trainable skills by the environment that you're in, by the challenges you come across, or the risks that you put yourself forward, the risks that you take. I think every single element of our past teaches us something that we use in the present and in the future.
Hello, everyone. We're here today with Karolina Pelc, who is an entrepreneur, investor, and author. Your book is being published by Simon and Schuster. It comes out June 9th, I
Indeed.
believe, called
Yep.
Her Play, which is very exciting. Before that, you founded Beyond Play, which was acquired by FanDuel, which is an amazing accomplishment, and you helped shape them into the number one gaming brand in the United States. So you have been always busy, it seems.
That's a very accurate description. Very nice intro. Thank you very much for having me. But yes, if I was going to describe my life in one word, it would probably be busy.
When you were a little girl, let's start there. What did you want to be when you grew up? Where did you see yourself?
I wanted to be a librarian because I loved reading books and I wanted to be close to books. So when I was really little and I didn't really have a concept of what that job entailed, I wanted to work at the public library, where I was a frequent guest myself.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, it was always a writer. So I guess this return to writing, at the age of 40, is a return to a childhood dream, really. It's not a random you know, idea that struck me that, hey, I'm going to write the book. It has been a dream, lifelong dream for me.
So I've always wanted to write too. But how did you end up making the leap from always wanting to write to actually writing this book?
So I actually never stopped writing. So I've been
Okay.
writing things, all my life. They were probably on the hobby side. I had a number of different blogs. When I first moved to London, I wrote a immigration type of blog. I wrote culinary blogs. I wrote travel blogs when I lived in Asia. So there was always an element of writing in me, but it was in Polish. And
Hmm.
I didn't have the confidence to write in English because I'm non-native speaker. I always had ease of writing in Polish, but I didn't know if I could translate it into a foreign language. And as I've been, staying away from Poland longer and longer for more years, and it's coming up to over 20 now,
Hmm.
I started to feel more comfortable in the language, especially when it comes to business. So when I achieved enough of a seniority level within my job, within my industry, where I could start writing authority pieces about what my work expertise is,
Hmm.
which is product, which is business. I gave it a shot and started writing articles, and turned out that I was actually pretty decent at it,
Yeah.
not it came easy to write, but people enjoyed both the style of writing, but and also the thought leadership in the articles. And it sort of went from there, but at no point it crossed my mind that I will write a book in English and not in my native language. And then I guess I always knew that I wanted to write my life story because without being overly humble, it is an interesting story. Whether you
Yeah.
think it's a story of success or not, whether you think it's a inspiring story or not, the fact that is interesting is undeniable because I lived in 7 different countries. I progressed through a variety of industries, and I have that zero to hero arch in the story, which people generally appreciate. I just didn't have the ending because I thought, so I'll write the story of my life, but where does it lead? Where does it
Yeah.
end? And I think when I sold the company, it was good enough of an ending that would let me sort of frame the story with a beginning and an end.
Yeah.
And And then I just went for it. I guess being on Necker with our lovely Candice, becoming friends with someone who is already a best-selling author was a big inspiration to me. There was
Hmm.
a couple of other people that wrote books on there. One of the guys launched his book when we were at the retreat, Ricardo, and I was looking at him thinking, I want that to be me. I want that moment, of telling people this is the book that I have written. And it went from there. It was not easy at the beginning. As we discussed, I did an agora for your community about
Yeah.
how I got started. So it wasn't the usual sit in front of the laptop and start writing on the white page because I couldn't break the writer's block. I initially experimented with a ghostwriter. I had a book coach because obviously I came from a place where I thought I don't have enough experience and maybe someone should do it for me or someone needs to teach me how to write the book first. But that didn't work because I wasn't learning a lot and I wanted too much control to work with someone else. And they very
Uh-huh.
quickly told me this is, you're uncoachable in that you have such strong passion and drive and an exact vision for this book that there is nothing we can do for you. You need to just go for it yourself. And that's when I realized that I actually have always been good at telling the stories
Uh-huh.
verbally. I never had a block when it comes to speaking. I speak loads, fast, loud, and on everything. So I started telling the book to
Hmm.
myself on the walks and recording those stories and then transcribing them. And I would start the chapters from the transcribe foundation of how I tell the story to my best friend. And
Oh,
that
I love
was
that.
the major enabler for me. Once I started doing that, it started pouring out. There was nothing stopping me. I couldn't keep up with editing the transcriptions, and I started having ideas how to structure the stories in different ways to make them funny, surprising, cliffhanger, and it went from there. And I think it was the best thing I could have done because otherwise I'd have sat in front of the computer for ages trying to break that writer's block.
I have now like 8 different questions that I'm trying to formulate from everything that you said. You ended up launching your book on Necker
Mhm.
Island with Sir Richard Branson. So you did get that moment that you wanted.
Yes.
What was that like?
It was an amazing moment of achievement for a variety of reasons. A, because the idea to write the book originated on Necker. So to launch it, being there for the second time was very, very special. B, it was a huge relief for me because I set myself an impossible deadline because I started writing the book in January and, the retreat was in June. And when
Oh,
I
wow.
started writing it, I didn't realize what goes into publishing a book with a publisher, which, by the way, is around a 2-year process. So it would have never happened before June. But I didn't know what the process of self-publishing entails. And I learned the hard way when I was ready with my manuscript, sort of a month and a half before the event. And I was like, right, so what do I do now to make this into the book?
Yeah.
And it turned out, oh, well, you need copy edit, layout, cover shoot, proofreading. So you probably need to read the 650 pages you wrote about 6 times between now and the next 4 weeks.
Hmm.
And then find the printing house that is going to print your books on time and deliver them to one of the most exotic destinations in the world. So it's not easy to
Yeah.
uh, arrange shipping there either. So when the books arrived there on time and when I was there on time and I didn't lose my luggage and no other catastrophe struck me on the way there and the evening came, I was like, okay, we're there. We
You
got
did
there.
it.
And then, I write about him in the second chapter. He has been a business icon to me from the very early age. I think he was my first encounter with the word entrepreneurship and
Uh-huh.
business in general. I was still a sort of lower rank employee when I came across Branson for the first time. So to see my book in his hand, the first copy from the printer, super special, just
Yeah.
I think people don't realize that for me it was way more than the virality of the moment. It was the emotional weight that was really, really big.
One of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you um, on this podcast was because you have this ambition and drive and curiosity and independence, all the things which made you uncoachable maybe for someone trying to help you write the book, but made you able to write the book yourself.
Mm.
But I wonder, when you were younger, was there someone who modeled these characteristics for you, or were you always this way, or did you grow into it? I guess that's two different questions put
Mm.
together, but
That's definitely not always this way. I was always a rebel, and but I wasn't an obvious strong personality. I was a shy child, not very assertive, um, and it was a difficult mix because I was excelling in academics, not so much in social skills.
uh-huh.
So I was always like, the president of the school organization, the main player in the basketball team or whatever, but I wasn't usually the most popular girl at school,
Hmm.
neither with girls nor with boys. Okay. So I guess, and then I went into semi-professional sports, which also meant I was withdrawn from the social life, and I only returned to the social life in high school, and that sort of backfired for my parents because I wanted all of it at once.
Yeah.
I wanted to make up for all the parties I missed before, and sort of be popular and be part of the, cool kid circles,
Yeah.
but I still wasn't very confident. And I remember even when I started working in the casino, in land-based casino, and then I started working on the cruise ships. I was 19 years old, and I arrived at this massive. Um, I can't call it. It's not really a ship. It's a floating city with
Yeah.
thousands of people on it, and 70% of them being men, and everybody's pretty much older than you. And I was so shy that I wouldn't drink water for days because I was too shy to go to the crew bar to buy a bottle of water. Because I just, I
Yeah.
was intimidated by this environment. So that shows you I wasn't always like that. I grew into this, and I think this is what I wrote a book about, that confidence and resilience and certain personality traits, they can be trained by um, conscious effort, but also unconsciously,
Hmm.
they are trainable skills by the environment that you're in, by the challenges you come across, or the risks that you put yourself forward, the risks that you take. And I guess that was my case.
Yeah. Why the casino environment? For someone shy, it doesn't seem like a natural jump.
It was more of a consequence of my social evolution than a choice, because my father works in casinos. He's
Hmm.
worked in casinos since I was like 6.
Okay.
And then, that rebellion that I told you about that happened to me at high school, where I kind of dropped studying and decided now I'm going to party full time.
Yeah.
Uh, that ended up in me not necessarily getting into the right university that I wanted to. So I had to get a job to pay for it.
Uh-huh.
And this was a job that my father recommended to me because it was a temporary way of making an income. But he also told me this is a smarter choice than going to bartend or be a waitress to make additional income, because that's a profession. And once you learn this profession, you'll always have it as your fallback if something happens with another job. So I
Uh-huh.
want to work in a casino for that reason. He did tell me, I do not see this as your go-to career. I think, you can do other things, but it is a profession and many people stay in it for life and
Yeah.
forever. And it's decent money and it lets you travel. So why not try? So that's how I ended up there. But he was very, very clear with me that he wants me to go and work in casinos abroad if I choose to stay in that profession, because Poland isn't the right environment because of the nature of
Yeah.
the demographics and so on. So he was like, I'm giving you 1 year, just enough to get the skill set, and then do with that what you want. But you cannot work longer than 1 year in this environment, because it wasn't very respectful towards women, young women, and general
Yeah.
staff.
But what risks do you think changed you the most personally?
Oh, definitely emigration. I left Poland when I was 20 with just a couple of £100 in my pocket. I left to London in that very first wave of people who went to UK right after we joined the European Union. So there wasn't really many resources to learn from, a lot of people with advice because we were the first batch.
Yeah.
And that was, it was a challenging experience because I very quickly realized how quickly this money will go,
Hmm.
how little money that is to be in London. I very quickly realized, that my salary isn't what I thought it was going to be, given the economical circumstances in the UK, how expensive things are. So I
Yeah.
had to become independent very, very quickly. And I was very proud. So I would have never gone back to my parents and asked them, can you send me money for a flight back? I want to come home, or send me some money. I was just not that person. So I had to find other ways to get myself to a comfortable status, to pretty much have food in my fridge
Yeah.
by the 20th or 25th, because it was tough. So I think this was one of the risks that changed me a lot. And then, as I told you, I've lived in 7 different countries. So I followed career opportunities to places like Malta, Manila in Philippines, Spain, back to London. And each one of those moves came with lessons. It came with leaving behind comfort and embracing something completely new culture, new country, new friends, new work positions. And every time, I guess that came out stronger from that experience.
You don't seem risk adverse at all. How do you decide which risks are worth taking and which ones aren't?
I have a very simple rule and simple way of categorizing risks. I divide risks between two types. One is a calculated risk, and one is an intuition-based risk.
Okay.
So I try to when I look at whether I want to take a risk or not, I look at these two things. If it falls into the calculated risk category for me, I will do research and I will educate myself and I will teach myself about the odds of that risk turning into a positive outcome.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes, if it falls into, I have literally no idea what the outcome will be, I'll go with my intuition on that one. Now, so on one, the odds need to be at least slightly in my favor for me to take it. On the other one, the intuition needs to tell me something. But there's the ultimate rule that I goes back to is, if not taking that risk, the thought of not taking that risk keeps me up at night more
Mhm.
often than the thought of taking that risk, that's my answer.
That leads me to, you have this guiding question, what if you fly? Right?
Mm.
That you say.
Narrative
Um,
right here.
oh wow. And so it makes me think of that. When did you first start asking yourself that?
I think I was asking myself that question all the time, because that was the way I was able to reframe fear throughout my career and my startup journey, where I was in really tough situations and I still went for it and took the risks. But I guess I wasn't defining it with that exact quote or question. But it was after I sold my company, actually, that I came across this poem. And it
Hmm.
really, really resonated with me. And then I started to get really interested in the neuroscience of failure and rejection and the different part of the brains responsible for different decisions. And it all started to make sense to me, but that certain behaviors that were natural for me and subconscious, they are actually very, very closely linked to what you should be doing if you know the psychology behind it.
Yeah.
And then I started naming it. So for me, that whole reframe of, rather than thinking if you fall, where you look at negative outcomes, and um, quite often your brain doesn't look for positive outcomes then, because it focuses on the destination that you already set for it.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what if you fly? Because that's where you're going to be pushing your brain to find solutions. So it became a motto for me. It became even stronger reinforcement. And I ask this question a lot. Um, but at the same time, I don't want people to forget that by asking yourself, what if you fly? It doesn't mean that you're not going to fall. You need to be prepared that you might fall. The difference is that you want to fly more than you are scared of falling. And you know that if you do fall, you'll get up, jump, and try to fly again.
I think of these nature shows I watch with my daughter, where the birds are trying to take off and they all fall, right? Like at the beginning. That's just part of the process of it. Um, and it's interesting when you talk about like the psychology behind failing and what our brains think of it and being able to name it, put a name to something, I think is so important. Do you remember any of like the books or the people that you read that really helped um like you get over some of not just get over, but like learn about this process?
Mm, I'm not sure if there is specific books because I read a lot of different startup books but
Okay.
they are more use case based.
Okay.
It's more listening to various psychology podcasts and I like a couple of different ones. I listen to Mel Robbins, I listen to Stephen Bartlett.
Okay.
I do follow Tony Robbins stuff every now and then. And there's a couple of other people, thought leaders in both the neuroscience and business and emotional sort of psychology that
Mm-hmm.
I follow randomly, whether that's social media or whenever I have time for a podcast, I'll find it. So it's not specifically from books, but the reason why I came across this is because I was looking for answers for my own book, because I wanted
Okay.
to write the book in a way that carries lessons, but I didn't want it to be a 10 steps manual,
Yeah.
10 steps how to sell your company, 5 steps how to get rich, 6 steps how to overcome fear. I didn't
Yes.
want it to be that. So I was trying to find a way in how I can frame my story without being this from the high horse type of manual approach. And that's where I came up with the mindset framework, which basically defines the 7 different elements that I think were key in my success
Mm-hmm.
and describes those elements through the stories of my life in a way that makes everyone ask themselves a question how their own life story relates to that element. And this is where I was starting to explore a bit further the different concepts that I could not just give people my own take, but
Mm-hmm.
also thought leadership
Yeah.
and quite often my own challenge of that thought leadership, which is what I think makes the books more most interesting because you learn from established authority. You get my take on things, and sometimes I make you think hard enough to challenge the established authority and maybe even challenge me. So there is a lot of triggers in the book for deeper reflection, and people keep telling me, I'm reading the book and I need to get a highlighter because I need to highlight the call outs. I need to highlight the things I want to think about again.
Uh-huh.
I need to highlight the things I'm not sure about whether I agree with you or I disagree, which is exactly what I wanted to achieve. I wanted people to have a reflection while they're reading it.
You are as I said earlier, the epitome of the whole hello, I'm bossy concept. My daughter was called bossy by a teacher at her school. I was upset at first, right? And then I was like, this is actually fantastic. This is like, what more could I want from my daughter than to be a leader and to be outspoken? And it's interesting, again, you mentioning challenging the authority established in,
Yeah.
by these other people. What led to you going from this quiet, shy child in Poland, right? To then being this woman who's perfectly comfortable challenging authority. I mean, there must have been like a series of
It's a
things,
series,
but
and that's what my book is about. It's a series of leaps. There are many defining moments. There There are things where I was completely outside of my comfort zone. I didn't have the qualification or the competence, and I still went for it. And I've proven myself that I can learn, that I can get good at this. And I had a pretty successful career,
Yeah.
and my startup journey was very, very hard, and the exit was fast. But I would never say my startup journey was easy. And I exited 101, like some people would claim, because I do think there was luck involved. But I look at luck through a very different lens than most people. But I'm not going to talk about that because that's the main message.
No,
You know,
no. Now
I
I was
want
like,
people
I
to.
want to know about this.
I'll talk
Yeah.
about it a little bit, but it is the main message I want people to take away from the book, their perception of lack. Um, but it's just, I think with achievement and with success, your confidence grows and you
Hmm.
start to think, actually, I might be good at this. And I should stop questioning myself. And maybe next time approach things with rather than I'm probably not good enough and I'll be lucky if I manage to do this, approach it with I'm good enough and I will do this. And then if you don't, you worry then.
I love, I love that. I'm still working on my bossiness that my daughter and all of you wonderful women that I get to talk to have. And I'm also curious about what the invisible work is behind success that people don't talk about enough, because you have been very successful. You are very successful. What's some of the work that goes into
I guess
being?
it's acceptance that you're never successful in all aspects. Because people only see one side of the story. They'll see your work or your family life or whatever. They don't understand that you might be facing other challenges, vulnerabilities that don't necessarily come through your work environment and so on. So the invisible work is to know that there's always a balance, and some things are going to go your way, some things are not going to go your way, which neither of those things depreciates your value as an overall human or a business person. And I think there is a lot of work going into understanding yourself, self-awareness, and building that self-belief, getting rid of the not good enough type of thoughts.
Yeah.
As I said, I openly talk about the fact that I don't believe that imposter syndrome should exist as a phrase in a dictionary. I completely disagree with this, and I will never say I ever had imposter syndrome. I had a lot of self-doubt, but I don't think it should be called imposter syndrome. So the work is constant, and even for successful people, it's it's a trainable skill, but it also needs to be maintained.
Yeah.
Because the fact that I was successful in my career didn't mean that I went into a startup journey feeling I'm going to be successful. I was scared. I was intimidated. I was, on the verge of failing hundreds of times. And then I sold the startup, and you could think my sort of success ratio increased, and I
Yeah,
should
that you're,
be super confident now.
yeah.
But it's not the case. I wrote the book, and you trust me, before the first person read the book, I was really scared that they're going to say, actually, it's not good at all. It's your own perception that this book is good. And
Yeah.
then with more people reading the book, obviously, more confidence came. But now that it's going to be released commercially and it's going to reach the hands of people that A, I don't know, so they don't need to be nice to me with their feedback. B, that might not be my exact target audience and might misunderstand my story and who I am. C, might get triggered with either jealousy or just general feelings of I don't like this girl,
Yeah.
and what she represents. And they might want to pour it on me. And I don't know if I'm ready for that. I think I am, that I'm confident enough to deal with criticism, definitely constructive criticism. Am I ready to deal with hate, like mainstream media, human weakness driven hate?
Yeah.
Hmm, potentially not, So, but I'm gonna have to go and see how it feels. I'm willing to take that risk because I think for every person that is an sort of anti-fan, there's a person that is a fan, and that the story could change their approach to life and give them a great source of inspiration and empowerment. And that is my mission, which is why I'm willing to put myself out there and take that risk. But again, I've openly talked about the fact that I'm pulling all the strings to try to reach a bestseller status, I already know it's almost impossible for a book like mine because it's not mainstream. For bestsellers, you need to be in mainstream media and breakfast TV and Daily Mail. And that is not my target demographic. I'd be hurting myself putting myself out there in media like that. And without that mass, purchasing power, it's very, very difficult. So it could be that time in my life where I set out so confidently with my whole what if you fly, believe in yourself, you can do it only if you dream it. And I'm gonna have to say, oh, well, fuck it. It didn't work, I
I
didn't
don't
get there.
see that happening. I don't know. It's my intuition that I don't see this as being one of those especially when you get Simon and Schuster right to sign on for it. That's one of those fairly big votes of confidence.
It is, but again, if you look at the numbers and the realities, which I've been educating myself because I'm actually doing marketing of the book myself. So I
Hmm.
decide the sort of different marketing mix and budget and so on because I wanted the creative control of it. Um,
Of
when you
course you
look,
did.
yeah, of course. And when you look at the number of books, I think I focused on the UK market because I decided to delay the US launch until a bit later. I don't have mental or calendar capacity to run two launches in two countries at the same time. But in the UK, there's 258,000 books that are being published every year
Oh,
by a
wow.
publisher, and around 700,000 self-published. So, and majority of those books don't sell over 1,000 copies lifetime. To be able to get a bestseller, you need to sell between 4 to 10,000 copies in 1 week. And you need to stand out from almost 1 million books being published a year, right? So the realities of if you're not famous and you not have a massive PR machine like Steve Bartlett or those big brands like Mel Robbins' book has behind them,
Yeah.
you're an indie author, and it's very difficult. I don't have 300,000 followers on Instagram, to sell to monetize. Um, so the realities are hard.
Yeah.
I would still give it my best, especially in my niche categories. And as I said, I said I would commit, so I will. But I am keeping at the back of my head that it might not happen. It still doesn't defer me from doing it.
I I love that you have this realistic piece, which you obviously have to have because you're successful and you need to be somewhat
It is one of those
realistic.
calculated risks.
Yes, exactly. But why did you feel called to write this book? I know you wanted to write because you like to write and you have been, but what made you feel called to do this book?
It was literally searching for an answer when people ask me, what is it that how did you manage to sell your company so fast? And what do you think was the main um, factors in your success in life? And I never thought about it because I never had a plan that I followed. I just went after intuition and pivoted where needed, adapted where needed, worked hard where needed, took
Hmm.
risks. So I didn't have an answer. And because I was at many conferences, I got a lot of spotlight on me, and people kept asking this question. I wanted to
Shh.
find an answer.
Sorry.
So then I started writing the book to find an answer, and it did help me find the answers. And they are not eureka type of answers, but they are answers that not everybody has to their own questions. And I think this book helps you answer these questions for yourself.
What do you hope that especially women reading your book will feel when they finish it?
I want them to feel that they can fly. And I know that they do because I have multiple reviews or feedback received from women who are from all walks of life, from nail salon owner or technician to VC professional who spent her whole life in finance and M&A to billionaire visionary founders. And people just say, obviously, the people that have already achieved success, for them it's just an interesting story and they enjoy the read because
Hmm.
it's written like a novel more than a self-help book. But the women are telling me that I now feel more motivated to go and start my own business, or I'm going to go and ask for a raise because I've discovered my self-worth. I looked at certain risks that I didn't take. I'm going to revisit and take some of them. So I know it's got an impact. There are girls that contact me that have been crying reading the book or, dying of laughter. And if I can provide someone with entertainment, that's already mission achieved. But if I can give them entertainment and a source of inspiration,
Hmm.
even if it's 20% of readers, again, mission achieved.
What do you still dream about that you haven't done yet? Do you have a dream?
At the moment, I'm coming for the first time in my life to the realization that I dream of letting go of the need for continuous achievement. I did not feel that right after the sale of my company. I couldn't take rest. I tried. I was getting depressed. It was not enough for me. I was feeling unfulfilled. So I threw myself into another over-consuming project. And now I'm feeling not when I finish this because there isn't really a finish line to your
Yeah.
book journey. And obviously, I have other engagements and I'm involved with VCs, founders. I'm a keynote speaker. But I was going to write my second book straight away. And I was going to write my third book straight away. I have titles for them and cover concepts and outlines. And some of them have their first chapters. I'm editing my first book and I have two more books in in progress.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I went, wait, just just take the summer off and try to figure out, do you need to do those other things straight away? You're 42. You've got plenty of time to do those things. Maybe it is a time to slow down. And if you don't know how, maybe that is the part that you need to learn now, not how to write another book, how to market another book, how to become a keynote speaker, stuff like that. I have more other dreams that are a bit more boring. Like I do want to be on TED stage, and I mean TED and not TEDx, which is not that easy.
Yeah.
So it's one of those dreams that might be unachievable as well, but it doesn't stop me from dreaming. I would like to see if the book could translate to a TV show because I think it's written in a way where it could.
Yeah.
But these are sort of like vision board items. But I'm really, really feeling inside for the first time ever. I want to learn to rest and let go from the constant need of proving something to myself because I'm not proving anything to anyone else. It's myself that I keep wanting to impress with my next project, and I want to curb that. I want to slow that down.
Why do you think that's so hard for you?
If I knew, I would have already had it under control. So
That's true.
yeah, I'll be asking my therapist.
Yeah, I know. When you find out, let me know. Let me know
Exactly.
too on that one. I
I
guess
think
my
there's many
last,
women that would want that
I
would
know.
maybe that's my fourth book, how
Yeah,
to rest,
how
how
to
to learn
rest.
how to be bossy and
Yeah,
successful, but also know how to rest.
how to
I
rest.
think this would be a bestseller for
I
sure.
I think that it would relate to a lot of women juggling and everyone juggling all of these different roles that we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Um,
By the way, my son calls me bossy, and
oh really?
I see absolutely no negative connotation in this, and I don't think you should be worried that because I don't know where the negative connotation of the word bossy comes from, it's
You
just
know, it was
confident.
it was Candace who really was like, you should buy that teacher flowers. And say
Sounds
thank
like
you for
Candace.
recognizing the leadership potential in my daughter. And I was like, that really did help me to be and really why I created this because I was like, there's so many of you amazing women out there who exemplify
Hmm.
the best of what this word is. I wonder If you could go back and tell your younger self one thing before all of this began, the girl who wanted to be a librarian, which I totally relate to. I love books. What would you say to her? Or would you say anything to her?
No, I wouldn't tell her anything. I wouldn't change anything in my past. I think that girl always knew that things are going to be okay and things are going to work out. She was never in a situation without, an exit. And she always found her way to achieve what she wanted. So I would tell her, you're okay. Just stay as you are, exactly as you are, and keep going the way you are. So I think every single element of our past teaches us something that we use in the present and in the future. So if I had a time machine, if I had the opportunity to write her a letter, I would not use it.
I love that. So many
Would you?
people, that's a great question. I don't think I would either. I was very shy as a child. I still am shy. Um, but it's the process of figuring out how to work with who you naturally are and goodness, so many mistakes that aren't really mistakes because they all form who you are. And I wouldn't change maybe a couple. I might tweak a little bit and maybe not make such big mistakes, right? But you learn
There was
so
one thing, it
much.
would be not, it would be not related to business. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, no,
You've
no. I want to know.
I would, and that's purely related to parenthood because I think I would have told her to be more grateful to my parents for giving me the opportunity because, I am where I am in life because my parents pushed me to learn English from very early age when I was way ahead in English of anyone at my high school, because my parents were so feeling strongly about it. They pushed me into competitive sports. Often against my own will. I was doing swimming races at the age of 6, and I was playing tennis
Oh,
from
wow.
8 to 15, and I wasn't natural talent either. So it wasn't coming easy to me, but they pushed me because they wanted me to develop that sports anger and competitiveness and ability to lose and go out on the court again, right? And I didn't appreciate it. So the moment I turned like 16, I dropped it all and I was like a rebel. I'm now going to, smoke weed in the park
Yeah, yeah,
between classes. So, and I caused them a lot of, gray hair and drama with my crazy behavior in my teenage years. And when I'm looking at my son now, who is 8, and I'm thinking this is coming for me at some time, I wish I didn't do it because I know I will get it because of karma.
yeah,
And I wish I was more grateful to my parents and could recognize that this was for my own good. And this is one of the biggest chances that they're giving me to succeed in life and sort of be able to leave Poland and do what I did. So that's the one thing I would have told her. Be more grateful for someone really working their asses off to
yeah.
support you through education and to give you opportunities they didn't have.
Isn't that amazing as you get older and have kids, how you do come to realize this huge role parents have
Yes,
and
absolutely.
this, especially when you're lucky enough to have ones that believe in you enough to push you, as annoying as that is when you're younger. But I love that teaching you how to fail.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
I think that is something that sometimes now we try to keep shield our children from. Um,
And it's funny because my parents didn't teach me how to fail the way I teach people now or the way I believe in. So it wasn't very much of, oh, you lost this time, you'll win next time. What if you fly? You don't worry. It was more like, well, you lost because you weren't good enough. You just didn't play good enough, so you need to train harder to play
yeah,
better. And that's the
yeah,
only way you're going to win next time. It's not going to happen magically for you. You need to put more
yeah,
work, ethics, you know. So that taught me that when you fall, sometimes it needs harder work to
Yeah.
not fall the next time, not just getting up and trying again. It's addressing your weakness that made you fall in the first time,
Yeah.
which I think it's a lot of this is missing from the current psychology of failure, because it's
Yeah.
just like fall, get up, try again, try again. But then you'd be trying again countless of times and nothing will
That's a
change
great
if you
point.
don't understand what made you fall in the first place. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's a circumstance out of your control, but sometimes it's a weakness that you can address.
My family's originally they're German from descent. So we have that kind of built into us, that realistic nature. I think some cultures maybe have that more than others, where it's like, no, this was a problem. You didn't do it well enough,
Yeah,
and now you need to work to do it
yeah,
better.
yeah.
But I think that that is a really great point to make. Otherwise, you're just doing that crazy thing where you're not changing anything. You're just
Yeah, that
repeating.
was going back to the original story. That was how I ended up in the casino, because I didn't get to university, not because I wasn't smart enough, because I was a straight A level student, A student until I went to school. I didn't get to university because I didn't prepare for the exams and I skipped school, constantly. So when the only education available to me became paid education, my
Hmm.
parents said, you want to study, you're going to have to pay for it, because it's the consequence of your own doing that
Yeah.
it now costs money. And we're not going to magically put this money forward. You're going to go get a job and pay it yourself. If you finish the university, we'll consider paying you back. But at this point, no, go and find the money for it.
So, your book, to conclude this out, for us in America or other countries, how do we buy it come June
So
9th?
yes, so that's a little bit problematic, because it was on pre-order to be released on June 9th, but I'm currently discussing this with my publisher, whether I should delay it to potentially September.
Okay.
Uh, so the best way is to sign up for waitlist at hairplay.com, where I'll be
Herplay.com.
sending newsletter updates on when the book is available, if it can be ordered somewhere directly, because potentially I'll have a batch of books available earlier for US, because I have a lot of people from my industry that want to buy the book. It just might
Yeah.
not be on traditional retailer sites or Amazon, because unfortunately, if you release and then don't do PR, it hurts you, right? So
Oh.
it needs to be timed. And again, that's a whole new genre of business that I'm learning right now.
Okay, so I'll sign up for this
Oh,
because
you'll get one sent by post, or
oh,
next time
okay,
you
okay.
can,
Well,
I will give
because
you a
I
copy.
so need these lessons. I think there's so many of us who, men and women, but probably, women learning from a woman who's
Yeah.
been there
There will be
is
an
just
audiobook
a
as well. An audiobook will release as soon as it's available. So that's not going to be delayed.
okay,
That's going to be on Audible potentially as early as May. If you can
okay.
bear my accent and my voice, because I decided to record it myself,
I love it.
it was too personal to give it to a narrator. So for busy people who prefer to listen in a car or in the gym, there will be an
Yeah.
audio available before June on
Maybe
Audible.
that'll get me to the gym too, listening to the
Yeah.
book. But thank you so much for joining me. I always love talking to you. You are inspirational and fun and relatable, and it was really like the best start to my morning. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you for having me, Catherine.
Thank you.
Always happy to support whatever you and Candice are doing, and really enjoy the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.